You know that person who disappears on weekends? The one who doesn't text back for hours, who comes home quieter, a little softer, like something heavy got left behind on the road. That's not someone running away from life. That's someone learning how to carry it. People who ride motorcycles as therapy aren't thrill seekers. They're people who figured out something the world never taught them, that the mind heals fastest when the body is fully, completely present. And on a motorcycle, you cannot afford to be anywhere else but here. This is what nobody tells you about riding. It's not about the speed, it's about the silence inside the speed. Your brain can hold 100 worries at once: grief, regret, the conversation you keep replaying at 2 in the morning, the future you can't stop dreading, the version of yourself you're not sure you recognize anymore. But on a motorcycle, all of it goes quiet. Not because life gets better, because the machine demands everything you have, every sense, every nerve, every single moment. You cannot spiral when you're riding. The road simply will not let you. Psychologists call this a state of flow, a term first studied by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a mental condition where full engagement completely shuts out intrusive thought. Riders stumble into it without knowing the clinical name for it. They just know how it feels, like breathing for the first time in weeks, like the volume of everything finally turning down, like remembering who you were before everything became this heavy, before you started carrying what wasn't yours to carry alone. People who ride develop something unusual over time, a heightened awareness of the present moment, not because they're spiritual, because survival genuinely requires it. Every shift in wind, every patch of wet gravel, every car that drifts 2 inches too close without signaling. Your nervous system learns to read the world in real time. Not yesterday, not next week, right now. Only right now. And here's what that does to a person over months and years. It trains you to stop living entirely in your own head, to interrupt the loop you didn't choose to be in, the mental replay that exhaustion creates and anxiety amplifies. Riding doesn't fix your problems, it doesn't pretend to, but it gives your mind a genuine, necessary break from holding everything alone. And sometimes that break is the entire difference between falling apart and finding a way forward. You also start to develop something riders rarely speak about openly, a relationship with solitude that isn't loneliness. That's an important distinction. Most people are genuinely afraid of being alone with their thoughts. They fill every quiet moment with noise and distraction and busyness. Riders learn to sit inside silence without flinching, to stop running from what's inside them, to find, somewhere in the quiet hum of an engine on an open road, something that finally resembles peace. Not permanent peace, not perfect peace, but real, present, honest. The kind you can actually feel in your chest. Enough for today. Sometimes that's all you need. Meet Megan, 32, works as a pediatric nurse in a busy suburban hospital outside Chicago. Long shifts, bright hallways, and alarms that never seem to stop. She lost her mother 2 years ago. For months, she couldn't sleep properly, couldn't eat without forcing herself. Therapy helped, talking helped. Late-night phone calls with her sister helped, but the grief still sat in her chest like a stone that refused to move. A friend from work suggested she try riding. She was deeply skeptical. But the first time she took a long, empty road alone at dawn, something inside her shifted. "I cried the whole first hour," she said, "and then I didn't, and I don't know how to explain that." She wasn't being distracted from her grief, she was moving through it. Fully inside it, and somehow moving through it at speed made it finally possible to breathe. The road held her in a way that nothing else had managed to. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Riding doesn't solve what's underneath. It opens a door, it does not walk you through it. People who use riding as therapy often feel extraordinary on the road, lighter, clearer, more themselves. Then they come home and feel the weight return. That's not failure. That's the real work becoming visible. Because what the road gives you isn't answers, it gives you clarity. And clarity asks something of you when you get back. It asks you to act differently, to choose differently. That part is hard. The road doesn't do it for you, it just makes you honest enough to begin. There's also something writers carry that others don't always see, a kind of alertness that never fully turns off. Eyes always scanning mirrors, reading traffic before it shifts. That vigilance is essential on the road, but sometimes it follows you into ordinary life, into quiet conversations, into rest you can't quite reach. It's not a flaw in the person, it's what a trained nervous system looks like when it hasn't been told it's safe to stop. Here's something that rarely gets said out loud. Many people who ride started riding after something broke inside them. A relationship that ended badly, a diagnosis that changed everything, a version of themselves they couldn't hold on to anymore. They didn't choose motorcycles because they were fearless. They chose them because they needed somewhere honest to put what they were carrying, somewhere that wouldn't judge the weight of it, somewhere that would simply move forward with them. And the road became that place. How do you explain that you feel more alive at 70 miles an hour than standing still in your own home? How do you tell someone that the wind is the only thing that made you cry and also the only thing that made you stop? That riding isn't recklessness, it's the closest thing some people have found to being truly held. By something vast, by something that asks nothing back, by something that simply keeps moving forward and lets you feel, for the first time in a long time, like you can too. There's a man named David, 43, works as an IT project manager for a mid-sized logistics company in Phoenix. Spreadsheets, deadlines, and constant Slack notifications that follow him home. He had been carrying anxiety for most of his adult life. Medication helped, structure helped, but there was always a low, constant hum of dread beneath everything he did. David started riding in his late 30s, almost by accident. A borrowed bike, a quiet Sunday, nowhere important to be. Within 6 months, something had genuinely changed. Not that the anxiety disappeared, but he had somewhere real to put it now. "The bike doesn't care how I'm feeling," he said. "It just asks me to show up completely, and for some reason, that's always been enough." His therapist noticed the shift before he'd even found words for it. He started talking about the future differently, like it was somewhere he was actually planning to reach. And maybe that's the real psychology here. Motorcycles force a kind of presence that most of us spend years trying to find, in meditation apps, in therapy rooms, in quiet journaling at the end of exhausting days. The road teaches it in the first 10 minutes. People who ride as therapy aren't escaping their lives, they're returning to themselves, to their body, to this breath, to this moment, to the version of themselves that existed before everything got complicated and loud and heavy. Their grief didn't vanish on the road, it became something they could carry without being crushed by it. Their anxiety didn't disappear, it learned to wait while they moved through open air and wide sky. And without trying to become anything, they became something rare. People who know in their bones that healing doesn't always happen in stillness. Sometimes it happens at speed. Sometimes it happens on a road that leads nowhere in particular, with the wind pulling everything unnecessary away from you, until only you remain. And that, it turns out, is enough. So the next time you meet someone who needs a ride before they can answer your question, who disappears for a few hours and returns more whole than they left, just know they've found their way back to themselves, again and again, on the same roads, in all kinds of weather, through all kinds of pain. That's not weakness dressed up as adventure, that's one of the quietest, bravest things a person can choose to do, over and over, without asking for credit. Just the road ahead and the courage to keep moving. So tell us this, what do you leave behind when you ride? Drop a comment, someone else